Live from the headquarters of Common Sense, this is Common Sense Christianity. As always, I'm your host, Ethan Foster, here today with another episode. And guys, we thank you for joining the live stream, or if you're watching the recording of this, thank you guys. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Even if you agree or disagree with what I'm saying, I really do not care. I appreciate the comments, guys. I'm going to do a better job at responding to them. I apologize for my lack of response and activity on there, but I have been really busy lately, so I'm going to try and fix that. Also, if you're watching the live stream, make sure you ask questions. I will get to them at the end of the podcast. Go check out our podcasts. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all kinds of platforms. And go follow our Instagram account where I answer a lot of atheist objections and talk about the love of God and things like that. So guys, today I'm going to talk about a topic I haven't really discussed in depth on the show, but today I found it important to talk about, and that is the topic of evolution. And I'm going to specifically talk about if Christianity and evolution can go together, and I'm going to list some certain proofs for evolution. So this is probably one of the most controversial subjects in the Christian church. Christians and scientists often clash on topics like these. What if they could go hand in hand, though? I know it's a controversial idea within the Christian church, but I'm just going to go in and suggest it. Christians will often point to the famed Genesis creation story. The account says that God created the earth in 6 days. However, scientists say that the universe was created in around 13.5 billion years based on current dating methods. When humans appeared around, modern-day Homo sapiens appeared around 200,000 or to 1 million years ago. So look, I'll be honest. Personally, I think theistic evolution is scientific fact. Well, evolution in general, whether there's a God behind it, is debatable, which is why we have this show. But there's good evidence for it. But how exactly would these two things go together? So let's break down the account. So Genesis 1:1, sure, almost everybody knows this, says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters." So first we have to figure out when all this happened. Now notice there's no date on it. There is no exact date that the Bible provides. So it could be 6,000 years. It could be 200 billion years. I mean, there is no time limit listed in the Bible. All it says is in the beginning. And this could be any time in history, like I just said. This is when science is very useful. We can discover things about the age of the earth, about the natural world. Scientists use sophisticated techniques to figure out the most likely date the universe began. The best example of this can be light years and stars. Using basic math, scientists can figure out how long it's taken for the light to get here. So how can light that took millions of years to get here arrive less than 6,000 years? We could assume that the speed of light has changed over the years, but that almost seems like God is tricking us on purpose. Because God, if he has the omnipotent, if he is omnipresent, if he knows everything, then he wouldn't then he would know that scientists such as Richard Dawkins, Stephen Hawking would come to the conclusion that evolution and the universe is an old long process, right? So he would know that and prevent the speed of light from changing, keep it at a certain speed. So that is my problem with the young earth creationist argument right there. Light years in and of itself prove that the universe is old, but that still doesn't have to do with evolution. So Christians, and this isn't in my notes here, I'm just going to go off of my knowledge of this. So Christians generally use this argument of no transitional fossils for evolution. Where's the transition? Where's the step from a reptile to a mammal, for example? And of course, this is just the ignorance of evolutionary topics, or things such as Dimetrodon, which is a mammal-like reptile from the mid-Permian period. There are several mammal-like reptiles during the early Triassic that eventually produced early mouse-like creatures. But yes, it is kind of hard to find the exact transition in the evolutionary record, and that's just something we have to deal with. My main proof for evolution here is, let's just imagine we have a few layers here, and you go down to the bottom layer and you look at the fossils there. All you can find is bacteria, right? And you go up, you see things get more sophisticated. You can go to the Precambrian. Now, there's some around 900 million years ago, if carbon dating is correct, multicellular life first appeared. So you could go into the fossil record there and find the early multicellular life and see how it gets more complex over time. I should have brought them down here for the video. I have a trilobite fossil from around 550 million years ago. I dug it up in Delta, Utah. Hopefully, I'm not getting my dates wrong here. But you can see that is a very complex multicellular organism, and it was an evolutionary success because it lasted until the end of the Permian period, around 250 million years ago. I sound like a science teacher right now. But yeah, that proves my point of simplicity to complexity. Now, of course, you don't always see this in the evolutionary record, but it provides the basic point. You will never find a dinosaur and a human together. That's the problem with the Noah's Ark theory. Now, they'll say, well, the dinosaurs look like they were all captured in a flood, which is true. A lot of dinosaur fossils happened because they were drowned and covered in mud very, very quickly. That is true. That does not mean Noah's Ark is the explanation for it, because if Noah's Ark was the explanation for it, then it would mean dinosaurs, humans, Dimetrodon, all sorts of creatures will be jumbled up together. But you don't see this. You will always have humans on near the top. You have dinosaurs somewhere going down farther. And then the more you go down, you get the older, the more strange looking creatures. So that's my basic proof for it. So the way I explain this, when we're going back to Genesis 1 and the whole first chapter of Genesis, is that it is more of a parable describing man's fall from God. Now, I am not saying Adam and Eve didn't exist. I'm not sure personally. That is one of the things that I just say, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out as I read the Bible. But I do see Adam and Eve's story, well, not their story, but the creation story, as more of a figurative language, something like how Jesus told. Jesus told many parables. I see no reason why that the Genesis story and many other stories like it aren't just the same. As we grow in scientific knowledge, we will come to more of these conclusions. And I think Christians, it is very detrimental to the Christian movement if we're going to sit here and pretend that there's no scientific evidence for evolution and that the Genesis 1 story, when taken literally, is backed by science. It simply isn't. I've never heard a Christian be able to give me direct scientific evidence for the Earth being only 6,000 years old, because there is none. And that is one of the few things I criticize my Christian brothers and sisters on. Well, guys, thank you for listening to this episode of Common Sense Christianity. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know the atheists might like it a bit more than some of the Christians, but who cares? I'm trying to get down to the truth here, and that is the goal of this podcast, of this YouTube channel, whatever you're watching it on. Make sure you subscribe, drop a like, go check out our podcast and Instagram account. Go subscribe, follow those, do whatever with them. And until next time, I'm Ethan Foster, here with Common Sense Christianity.